I'm Joey.
I'm Jason.
And this is Metal
Monster
Review. Being as it's the Halloween season, it's about time that we finally got to some universal classic horror. So today we're going to talk about the 1931 movie Frankenstein. This movie's so groundbreaking. It has Boris Karloff, Colin Clive, Dwight Fry, these classic horror actors. And when this movie came out, it was something like you've never seen before because it set the foreground for so much different horror to come. You know, you had the creepy atmosphere, the cemeteries, but the story here is you have a scientist who is battling life versus death. And he brings a creation from dead tissues back to life to form his own creation. Jason, would you like to talk a little bit about Frankenstein?
I just think how the movie opens up's cool. At a funeral, they're burying somebody.
Yeah.
That's just a cool opening for the movie. I mean, it doesn't sound cool now, but back in 1931, that was pretty shocking to people. The movie opens up, they're burying somebody. Then you got Dr. Frankenstein and his little assistant Fritz watching. And I don't know about you, but I think Fritz really likes funerals.
I think he did too. He really enjoyed that. It seems like he gets his levels up and running.
His face got all like, he starts standing up watching as they're loading the casket down. And
get down, Fritz.
But that was just cool how they opened up with that.
Oh, absolutely.
For 1931.
Absolutely. And one thing that I do love is the actual opening scene prior to that, where you have, I believe the actor was Edwin von Sloan, come out and start discussing the premises of this whole movie. So he's sitting there telling you that it deals with life and death. It may shock you. It may thrill you. It may horrify you. And if you wish to not subject your nerves to this, well, here's your chance. And I love that because how many movies do you see that actually do that? Like, here's your disclaimer warning that what you're about to see may horrify you, and here's your chance. I think that adds a little more thrill to the movie as well.
And he's mentioned about Boris Karloff playing the monster. And I think it's cool at the beginning of the movie with the credits where it has the monster has a question mark. It doesn't say
it gives you a little mystery to it for sure.
And they actually wanted Bela Lugosi to play the monster in Frankenstein.
Yes, that is correct. He didn't want to do it. He turned the role down fresh off of Dracula, which came out that year as well.
It's like Karloff was born for this role. He was born for it. His face is just, I mean, it's just perfect. All the makeup they do on him, it just suits it perfect.
Yes, like his facial features and everything. And realize he had no dialogue in this movie whatsoever, no speaking. Everything was based off of body language. And that's one thing that I do like about it, is that after Frankenstein gets his creation, you know, all put together and it brings it to life, when you first see Karloff, when he's walking backwards into the room, you don't even see him. All you see is the back of his head, his back. He's walking backwards. And then he slowly, when you see him turn around, that camera shot onto his face, and almost like this lifeless eyes, and just this almost like real thin, like skeleton facial features. You know what I mean? Almost looks like he was like deathly ill.
And Karloff wanted to get in this character so good, he actually had bridges in his mouth, and he removed them to give him that more sunken look.
Sunken in on his face, without a doubt. But I love the portrayal of Colin Clive here as Dr. Frankenstein. Because here's a man who firmly believes in his own creation and believes in what he's doing. Because he wants to figure out a way to create life after death. Which, you know, he's thinking of this from just a science perspective where everybody's on him about, you know, you've had the whole religious vibe going on here, but he's thinking about it just from a scientific point of view. It's like, well, what happens to life after, you know, during death? You know what I mean? Let's see if we can reanimate this and to give this creation of a new form of life.
I like when he was getting ready to, he actually had an audience with him when he was going to do his experiment to bring the monster to life. And before he did that, he's talking to the three people there, and he's like, one crazy person, three sane people.
Because that's what I love about Colin Clive is that he made you sympathize with him. And that, he firmly believed this, but everybody else thought he was insane.
And just the all the emotion he puts into playing Dr. Frankenstein. Later movies, people that played him, they do it over the top, but like when he's doing it, you don't know if he's fucking crazy or just into what he plays it like so straight. It's just I can't even explain it how he plays it.
And he isolated himself because he was staying in this like abandoned watchtower, and that's where he did his experiment. So he had his assistant go to the local medical school where he attended there himself, and to bring back a brain for his creation. But one thing I often wondered, if he was such a renowned doctor and surgeon at that point in time, wouldn't he have noticed that there had been some type of abnormality in the brain that he brought back, that his assistant brought back? Because this is what happens here, is that they bring back an abnormal brain. So now when his creation is brought to life, the monster, as is referred to as, kind of runs amok. It's almost like it becomes very agitated and fragile. It's just not running on all cylinders, and that's what makes it interesting.
Yeah, but it doesn't help Fritz torturing it.
No, not at all. He ensued the anger and the
Yes,
monster for sure.
at first, the monsters, Henry gets him to like sit down and he listens to him and everything, but then Fritz has to get his dirty paws in there and torture the poor thing.
And he did, and Fritz, things didn't work out well for him. Let's leave it at that. Things did not work out well for Fritz as they found his body. And the monster ends up escaping and kind of runs amok through the village there. And is going through the woods and ends up killing a small child.
And there's certain cuts of this movie where they take that out.
Yeah, because back in 1931 they thought that scene was just too much.
But if you had watched the original scene where he's playing with the little girl and they run out of flowers, so he throws her in there, and you can see that he's sad that he did that and runs off. But if you watch the part where they take that out, all you see is a guy carrying his dead daughter.
And not much.
It's like, well, what did the monster do to her?
It looks more intensely that way because you're right, and I love that point that you brought up. Because I know with that cutscene there, they actually restored it later, and as you mentioned, with her throwing the flowers in and just kind of trying to bond with him, really. He thinks, okay, throwing flowers into the pond looks like fun. It's like, well, then he leans in, picks her up, and she ends up drowning. But just that scene alone with the father carrying his dead daughter through town.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the Burgermeister and the police are there, and they're like, well, what had happened here? Why did you bring her here? She's been murdered. Well, he didn't see what the hell really happened, though. The dad had no idea. You know what I mean? So
that's a good point, too. I wondered that, too. How did he know she was murdered?
Yeah, so immediately they gather up the troops there and they go hunting through the woods, which is a really cool thing here because this kind of lays a lot of foreground for monster movies where you get the angry mob.
The angry mob and torches.
Torches and going through and looking for somebody. And I think that's where this kind of came from, for sure. Now, during all this, Dr. Frankenstein is supposed to be engaged to be married, but he's like blowing off his wedding here, just giving his fiancée the cold shoulder because he's so hell-bent on his creation. And the family, everybody's starting to think that, does he have another woman on the side? Why is he hiding out in this, abandoned tower? So you have all this different emotions going on here as well. But it's just a classic movie, and I think it's great that we're talking about this because now it is the 90th anniversary of Frankenstein.
And out of all the other Frankenstein movies they made, I still think nothing tops the design of the monster in this one.
Jack Pierce did amazing work, without a doubt. And so much of his work is like synonymous with pop culture, Halloween today because we're all familiar with a lot of his work. We've all seen the makeup done on Boris Karloff's Frankenstein, Elsa Lanchester's Bride of Frankenstein, Lon Chaney's Wolfman, and that's all been done by Jack Pierce. And here's a guy who I think deserves more credit because he is. He's like almost synonymous with pop culture Halloween because we've all seen these, characters before. Even though the movies aren't on as much anymore, but still, you've seen the characters at some point in time before. Now, do you have anything else you want to add with Frankenstein?
It's just a great Halloween movie to get you in the mood for the season.
Without a doubt. But one thing I do definitely want to mention is the scene here at the end when Dr. Frankenstein is face to face with this monster and he realizes that he has to attempt to destroy his own monster and destroy his own creation. And I love that little fight scene there when they're sitting there inside the windmill. And that's just an amazing scene because knowing that he's looking at his own creation and his own creation's looking back
looking at each other, that little spinning wheel, so you get glimpses of them.
And the townspeople are outside with torches, and just knowing that he's in there. And I just love that whole climatic scene. This is a movie that's totally worth watching. I highly recommend this. If you like what you heard today, feel free to subscribe. I'm Joey.
I'm Jason.
And this is Metal
Monster
Review.